Dr. Hana Kim was enjoying her morning coffee when the universe changed forever. She sat in the communications bay of the research ship Harmony's Edge, watching radio waves dance across her screens like digital fireflies. For 3 months, they had been scanning empty space, looking for signs of intelligent life. Today, they found more than they bargained for. The signal hit their receivers at 0847 ship time. At first, Hana thought it was just cosmic noise, the random chatter of dying stars and spinning pulsars, but then she saw the pattern. Mathematical sequences repeated in perfect order, prime numbers counting upward, the basic building blocks of universal communication. "Captain Park?" she called into her headset. "You need to see this." Captain Dongwoo Park arrived within minutes, still carrying his breakfast tray. He was a practical man who had spent 15 years exploring the outer edges of human space. Nothing surprised him anymore. Or so he thought. "What do you have, Hana?" he asked, setting down his food. "It's a message," she said, her fingers flying over the controls. "Multiple frequencies, 17 different mathematical languages. Someone is broadcasting this on every channel they can think of." Park leaned over her shoulder as she decoded the transmission. The first part was simple coordinates, pointing to a star system called Vextar. Then came images, crude but clear. A blue-green, world covered in crystal cities, tall, gentle beings with 4 arms and peaceful faces, children playing in gardens of impossible beauty. Then the images changed, fire falling from the sky, cities cracking like broken glass, the gentle beings running, screaming, dying. And above, it all dark ships shaped like daggers, raining death on everything below. "My God," Park whispered. The final part of the message was a plea. Hana had heard desperate calls before, but this was different. This was the cry of a species facing extinction. The translation software struggled with the emotional weight of the words, but the meaning was clear. "Please help us. We are dying. We have no weapons. We have no soldiers. If anyone can hear this, please help us." Dr. Junho Lee entered the communications bay just as the message ended. He was the ship's physicist, a quiet man who preferred numbers to people. But even he looked shaken as he watched the decoded images. "How far is the Vextar system?" Park asked. Lee pulled up the star charts. 3 weeks at maximum speed. "But, Captain, we're a research vessel. We have no weapons, no military training. What could we possibly do?" Before Park could answer, Chief Security Officer Kyung-min Choi stepped through the doorway. She was the only person on the ship with military experience, a former Marine who had joined the exploration service to see new worlds. Now those worlds were calling for help. "I monitored the transmission," she said. "We have to respond." "Kyung-min, be reasonable," Lee protested. "We're scientists. We study things. We don't fight wars." "Then what are we supposed to study?" Choi shot back. "The empty space where an entire civilization used to be?" Park raised his hand for silence. He walked to the main display and stared at the star charts. Vextar was a tiny dot of light in an ocean of darkness. 3 weeks away. 3 weeks that might already be too late. "Show me the message again," he said quietly. Hana replayed the transmission. This time, Park focused on the attackers. The dark ships moved with military precision, striking key targets with brutal efficiency. But there was something else. The way they positioned themselves, the patterns of their attacks. These weren't random raiders. This was systematic extermination. "Computer, analyze the attacking vessels," Park commanded. The ship's artificial intelligence processed the images. "Ships appear to be of Krex design," it reported. "The Krex Empire is a military confederation known for aggressive expansion and slave-taking operations." Choi's face hardened. "I know about the Krex. They don't take prisoners unless they need workers. Everyone else dies." "How many people are we talking about?" Park asked. Hana checked the decoded data. The transmission mentions 12 billion inhabitants across the Rilani territories. That's what they call themselves, the Rilani. But most of their colonies have already fallen. The home world might be the last stronghold. The bridge fell silent. 12 billion lives. It was more people than lived on Earth's moon colonies, more than many entire human worlds. And they were dying while the Harmony's Edge drifted in empty space, debating what to do. Park made his decision. Hana, compose a message to Earth Fleet Command. Include everything we've received, plus our analysis. Use emergency priority channels. What? About us? Lee asked. Are we going to Vexitar? Yes, Park said simply. Sir, with respect, what can we accomplish? We have no weapons. Our shields are designed for asteroid impacts, not military combat. If we encounter those Krek ships, we'll be destroyed in minutes? Park walked to the observation window and looked out at the stars. Maybe we can't fight. Maybe we can't save them, but we can witness. We can record what happens. And sometimes, bearing witness is the most important thing you can do. Choi nodded approvingly. The colonial charter requires all human vessels to respond to genuine distress calls when possible. This qualifies. Even if it gets us killed? Lee asked. Especially then, Park replied, because someone needs to tell the story. Someone needs to remember. Hana finished encoding the message to Earth Fleet Command. The transmission would take 4 days to reach human space, carried by the fastest communication drones in their cargo hold. By the time Earth received it, the Harmony's Edge would already be halfway to Vexitar. Message away, Captain, she reported. Good. Junho, plot a course for the Vexitar system. Maximum speed. Course laid in, sir. Kyungmin, I want every piece. Of defensive equipment we have checked and ready. We might not be warriors, but we're not helpless. Understood, Captain. As the Harmony's Edge turned toward Vexitar and engaged its faster-than-light drive, Park remained at the observation window. Behind them, Earth was a distant memory. Ahead lay an unknown system where billions of innocent people were dying. He thought about the Rilani children in the transmission, playing in gardens that no longer existed. He thought about the desperation in their final message, broadcast into the void with nothing but hope that someone, somewhere, might care enough to help. We're coming, he whispered to the stars. We may not be much, but we're coming. The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying its crew toward a destination that would change everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the galaxy. In the communications bay, Hana continued monitoring radio frequencies, hoping against hope that they wouldn't be too late. 3 weeks to Vexitar. 3 weeks to find out if compassion could overcome impossible odds. 3 weeks to learn what it truly meant to be human in a universe that often forgot the value of mercy. The Harmony's Edge dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vexitar system, and Captain Park immediately wished they had stayed home. Through the main viewer, they could see Veltara burning. The beautiful blue-green world from the distress message was now covered in smoke and fire. Dark shapes moved in orbit around it like vultures circling a dying animal. My God, Dr. Hana Kim whispered from her position at the communications station. We're too late. No, Chief Security Officer Kyungmin Choi said firmly. Look at the energy readings. There's still fighting down there. Some of them are still alive. Captain Park studied the tactical display. 17 Krek's warships surrounded the planet, their weapons firing continuously at targets on the surface. Each blast left another crater where a city used to be. But between the attacks, he could see return fire. Weak, scattered, but still there. Hana, can you establish contact with the surface? He asked. She worked quickly, scanning frequencies until she found a signal. I've got something, Captain. It's weak, but it's definitely Rilani. The voice that came through the speakers was tired and afraid, but dignified. Park had Hana translate as the conversation continued. This is Elder Tyvan of the Rilani High Council, the voice said. Who are you? How did you get past the Krek's blockade? We're explorers from Earth, Park replied through Hana's translation. We received your distress call. We came to help. There was a long pause. Earth? We do not know this world. Are you warriors? Park looked around the bridge at his small crew. Dr. Lee hunched over his science station. Hana working frantically to maintain the communication link. Choi checking their defensive systems for the 100th time. They were not warriors. They were scholars, explorers, scientists. No, he said honestly, we are not warriors. But we came anyway. Elder Tyvan's reply was filled with a sadness that transcended translation. Then you will die with us. The Kreks show no mercy to the weak. You should flee while you can. Tell us about your people, Park said instead. Help us understand. As Elder Tyvan spoke, a picture emerged of a civilization unlike anything humans had encountered. The Rilani had evolved on a world with no predators, no natural enemies, no concept of warfare. They were farmers, artists, philosophers. Their technology was advanced but peaceful. They had discovered spaceflight, built beautiful cities among the stars, created art that could move souls. And now they were dying because they had never learned to fight. The Kreks came 6 months ago, Elder Tyvan explained. They demanded our surrender, our resources, our people as slaves. When we refused, they began the killing, world by world, city by city. We tried to negotiate. We offered them everything we had. They laughed at us. Dr. Lee looked up from his station. Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the Krek ships. They're preparing for something big. On the main screen, the Krek's fleet was forming a new pattern. Their ships spread out in a perfect sphere around Veltara, weapons charging with ominous light. They're going to crack the planet, Choi said, grimly. Split it open like an egg to get at the mineral deposits in the core. Park felt sick. 12 billion people about to become cosmic dust because they had never learned to be killers. But 847 light-years away at Luna Naval Station, Admiral So Young-han was reading a very different kind of message. The emergency transmission from the Harmony's Edge had arrived 3 days ago, and she had not slept since. She stood in the Fleet Command Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing ship positions throughout human space. Earth's fleets were scattered across dozens of systems, exploring, protecting colonies, maintaining peace. But Admiral Han was looking at something else entirely. Show me the Galactic Council files on the Kreks Empire, she commanded. The displays shifted to show intelligence reports. The Kreks were an old enemy, known for their brutality and expansion. They had destroyed dozens of civilizations, enslaved millions, turned entire star systems into graveyards. And now they were killing children on a world that had never known. War. General Minseo Kwan entered the command center, her face grim. The cabinet is meeting in 1 hour, she said. They want to know if we're going to intervene. What choice do we have? Admiral Han asked. We could stay out of it, Kwan replied. It's not our fight. We barely know these Rilani exist. Admiral Han called up the decoded images from the distress signal. Rilani children playing in crystal gardens, families gathering for meals, artists creating beauty that took your breath away. And then the fire, the death, the systematic extermination of everything good and gentle in their world. They sent a cry for help into the void, Admiral Han said quietly. Just a message thrown into space, hoping someone somewhere might care. And we heard it. Lieutenant Tae-ho Shin approached with a data pad. Admiral, I've been analyzing the Kreks attack patterns. They're not just conquering, they're enjoying this. The psychological profiles suggest they take pleasure in destroying peaceful civilizations. Show me. The tactical display revealed the horrible truth. The Kreks could have ended the war in days. Instead, they were drawing it out, savoring the fear and helplessness of their victims. They were torturing an entire species to death. Admiral Han's decision was swift and final. Signal all ships in the Third Fleet. Full battle configuration. We leave in 6 hours. Admiral, General Quan protested. The political implications— Politics can wait, Han interrupted. Prep the Soul's Thunder for departure. And General, load every weapon we have. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. The Third Fleet was Earth's most powerful battle group. 127 warships, from massive dreadnoughts to fast attack cruisers. Ships built by a species that had crawled out of a gravity well where everything tried to kill them. Ships crewed by humans who had never forgotten that. Sometimes, the only way to protect the innocent was to become very, very dangerous. Within hours, the fleet was assembled. Admiral Han stood on the bridge of the flagship Soul's Thunder, looking out at her armada. Each ship represented decades of human engineering, human determination, human understanding that peace was only possible when good people were willing to fight for it. All ships report ready, Admiral, her communications officer announced. Signal the fleet, we jump in 30 seconds. She opened a channel to every ship in the formation. This is Admiral Han. We're about to enter a situation where an entire civilization is facing extinction. They called for help, and we're going to answer. Remember who we are. Remember what we stand for. And remember that sometimes being human means being willing to become monsters to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The Third Fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying Earth's answer to the Rilani distress call. They would arrive at Vextar in 4 days, bringing with them every lesson humanity had learned about warfare, every innovation born from a world where evolution had made them predators. In the Harmony's edge, still hiding at the edge of the Vextar system, Captain Park watched the Krex fleet prepare for their final assault. He thought about Admiral Han and the message he had sent. By now, Earth would know what was happening here. By now, decisions would be made. Elder Tyvan, he said into the communication link, help is coming. How can you be sure? The Rilani leader asked. Park looked at his crew, at the determination in their eyes despite their fear. Because we're human, and humans don't abandon their friends. The Third Fleet arrived at Vextar like a thunderstorm breaking over a quiet lake. One moment, the Krex ships were alone with their dying prey. The next, space filled with the energy signatures of 127 human warships dropping out of hyperspace. In perfect formation. War leader Gexta of the Krex Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the tactical display in disbelief. In his 40 years of conquest, he had never seen anything like it. The human ships appeared in a 3-dimensional grid that surrounded his entire fleet, each vessel positioned with mathematical precision. What species are these? He demanded, of his intelligence officer. Unknown, war leader, they call themselves humans. Our files show them as a minor exploration race from the outer rim. Gexta laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. Another group of peace lovers come to die for the Rilani. Signal the fleet. We'll destroy them quickly and return to our work. On the bridge of the Soul's Thunder, Admiral So Young Han watched the Krex response with cold eyes. She had studied every intelligence report about their enemy during the journey to Vextar. The Krex were bullies, used to fighting victims who couldn't fight back. They had never faced predators before. Open a channel to the Krex flagship, she ordered. Captain Yujin Ro of the destroyer Busan's Blade had been given the honor of delivering humanity's ultimatum. She was young for a ship captain, but she had grown up on New Sol, a colony world where saying the wrong thing could get you killed by the local wildlife. She understood the language of predators. Krex vessels, she broadcast on all frequencies. This is Captain Ro of the Earth Defense Force. You have exactly 1 hour to withdraw from this system and release all Rilani prisoners. This is your only warning. The response came quickly. War leader Gexta's image appeared on the communication screen, his alien features twisted with amusement. Little human, he said in heavily accented standard. You are greatly outnumbered. My fleet has conquered 50 worlds. We will add yours to the list. Captain Rowe's reply was delivered in the same calm tone she might use to discuss the weather. "You have 59 minutes remaining." Gexta's amusement turned to anger. "You dare threaten the Krex Empire? Watch and learn what happens to those who oppose us." The communication screen shifted to show footage from the surface of Veltara. Krex soldiers had captured a group of Rilani civilians, including children. As the humans watched in horror, the soldiers began executing them one by one, their weapons turning peaceful beings into ash. "This is what mercy gets you," Gexta taunted. "Surrender now, or we will do this to every Rilani on the planet." Admiral Han's face showed no emotion, but her knuckles went white as she gripped her command chair. Around her, the bridge crew watched in stunned silence. In all their years of exploration, they had never encountered evil this pure, this casual. "Signal from Captain Rowe," the communications officer reported. Han nodded. "Put her through." "Admiral." Rowe's voice was steady, despite what they had all witnessed, requesting permission to demonstrate proper human diplomacy. "Granted," Han replied. What happened next became legend in military academies across the galaxy. Captain Rowe's destroyer, the Busan's Blade, moved with liquid grace through the Krex formation. Her ship was small compared to the massive Krex dreadnoughts, but it had been built by humans who understood that size meant nothing if you couldn't hit your target. The Busan's Blade fired once, a single, precisely targeted beam that struck the Krex flagship's primary communication array. The explosion was small, surgical, sending the message that humans could hit whatever they aimed at. 58 minutes, Rowe announced calmly. Gexta's response was immediate and predictable. His entire fleet opened fire on the lone human destroyer. Plasma bolts and energy beams filled space with deadly light, all focused on one small ship. None of them hit. The Busan's Blade moved like a living thing, weaving between attacks with impossible precision. To the Krex, who were used to fighting, enemies that stood still and took punishment, it was like trying to swat a fly with a sledgehammer. But Rowe wasn't alone. As the Krex focused on her ship, the rest of the human fleet began to move. Not the clumsy, predictable movements of civilized species, but the coordinated hunt behavior of pack predators who had spent millions of years learning to kill things bigger than themselves. Commander Jae-Sung Ko led a squadron of stealth frigates through the chaos. His ships were nearly invisible to Krex sensors, designed for reconnaissance and quick strikes. Now they became hunters, slipping through the enemy formation to target command and control systems. Each human ship fought differently, adapting to the situation with the kind of flexibility that could only come from a species that had evolved on a world where everything wanted to eat them. The heavy cruisers used their massive weapons to force the Krex into defensive positions. The fast attack craft struck like sharks, hitting hard and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Aboard the research vessel Harmony's Edge, still, hiding at the edge of the system, Dr. Hana Kim worked frantically to coordinate with Rilani survivors on the surface. The peaceful beings couldn't fight, but they could observe. Their heightened senses, developed over millions of years of avoiding danger, made them perfect spotters. "Elder Tyven," she called through the communication link. "Can your people track the Krex ground forces?" "Yes," came the reply. "We see everything. Even in the darkness we see. The partnership that developed changed everything. Rilani civilians hiding in underground shelters began feeding targeting information to the human fleet. They could track Krex movements with uncanny precision, their peaceful nature ironically making them deadly allies in war. Captain Park watched the battle unfold on his screens, amazed at what he was seeing. The human fleet moved like a single organism, each ship connected to the others by an invisible web of communication and coordination. This wasn't just military tactics. This was the behavior of a species that had never forgotten how to hunt. 30 minutes remaining, Captain Rowe announced, her destroyer still dancing between enemy weapons. By now, the Krex fleet was in chaos. Their rigid military formations had been shattered by human tactics they couldn't understand or counter. Ships designed to intimidate peaceful civilizations found themselves outmaneuvered by vessels that fought like living predators. War leader Gexta screamed orders at his subordinates, demanding they destroy the human fleet. But his weapons were designed for siege warfare, for bombarding helpless planets. They were too slow, too clumsy to catch ships that moved like hunting animals. Commander Yunji Park led her heavy assault battalion in a boarding action that would be talked about for centuries. Her Marines, trained on a world where a moment's inattention meant death, cut through Krex defenses like they were made of paper. Their power armor was advanced, their weapons were deadly, but their real advantage was simpler. They were predators, attacking prey. The Krex had never developed tactics for close-quarters combat. They were conquerors, not soldiers. When humans began boarding their ships, they discovered that all their technological advantages meant nothing against beings who had learned warfare in the gravity well of Earth. 10 minutes, Captain Rowe announced. Admiral Han opened a channel to the Krex flagship. War leader Gexta, you now have two choices. Withdraw immediately or discover why the Galactic Council classifies Earth as a Class 7 death world. Gexta's image appeared on the screen, his alien features now showing fear instead of arrogance. You cannot defeat the Krex Empire. We rule 47 star systems. Correction, Admiral Han replied calmly. You ruled 47 star systems. As of today, you rule none. Around them, the battle was ending. 60% of the Krex fleet was destroyed or disabled, while the humans had suffered only minor damage. It hadn't been a battle. It had been a demonstration. Time's up, Captain Rowe announced. What happened next sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The remaining Krex ships, including Gexta's flagship, simply vanished. Not destroyed, not captured, but transported instantaneously to the edge of the system by technology the Krex didn't even know existed. Admiral Han's final message was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every species in the region would hear it. This is Admiral Han of the Earth Defense Force. The Krex Empire is hereby dissolved. All occupied worlds will be liberated. All enslaved peoples will be freed. Any Krex vessel found in Rilani space will be destroyed without warning. In the communications bay of the Harmony's edge, Dr. Hana Kim stared at her instruments in amazement. The impossible had happened. The Rilani were free. 3 days after the Veltara incident, as the military historians were already calling it, the second Krex armada arrived expecting to find the remnants of a small battle. Instead, they discovered that humanity had spent the time doing what humans did best: learning, adapting, and preparing to hunt. Fleet Admiral Gorthak commanded the reinforcement fleet from his massive dreadnought Death's Crown. He brought with him 200 warships and the absolute confidence that came from a lifetime of conquest. The reports he had received seemed impossible. A small fleet of unknown aliens had somehow defeated war leader Gexta's forces. Ridiculous. Show me these humans, he demanded as his fleet dropped out of hyperspace. What he saw changed his mind. About ridiculous. The human fleet had deployed in a formation that should have been impossible to coordinate. Ships spread across thousands of cubic kilometers of space, yet moving with perfect unity. To Gorthak, who thought in terms of straight battle lines and frontal assaults, it looked like chaos. He didn't understand that he was looking at the three-dimensional thinking of a species that had learned to hunt in forests where death could come from any direction. Admiral So Young Han stood on the bridge of the Soul's Thunder, watching the Krex fleet attempt to form their traditional attack. Formation. She had used the 3 days well, studying every scrap of intelligence about Krex tactics and technology. Now she knew exactly how they thought, how they fought, and most importantly, how they died. Signal all ships, she ordered. Initiate hunting. Pattern 7. What followed became known throughout the galaxy as the Veltara demonstration. It showcased every aspect of human warfare that made other species deeply uncomfortable. The ability to coordinate complex strategies across vast distances, the instinct to protect allies at personal cost, and the terrifying escalation that occurred when humans perceived innocent life under threat. The human ships moved like a pack of wolves surrounding a herd of cattle. Each vessel was positioned to support multiple others while maintaining complete freedom of movement. When the Kreks opened fire, they found themselves shooting at shadows. When they tried to maneuver, they discovered that humans had already anticipated their moves. Commander Yoonji Park led the first boarding assault of the engagement. Her heavy assault battalion had spent the last 3 days studying Krek's ship layouts and developing new tactics. When her Marines breached the hull of a Krek's cruiser, they moved through the corridors like they had been born there. The Krek's crew fought back, but they had never faced close-quarters combat against a species that understood hunting. Human Marines used every advantage their evolution had given them: superior reflexes, better coordination, and the bone-deep knowledge that sometimes you had to kill or be killed. Boarding teams have secured 3 enemy vessels, Park reported to Admiral Han. Resistance is light. They don't know how to fight in their own ships. Dr. Junho Lee, meanwhile, had made a discovery that changed the entire battle. Working from his position on the Harmony's edge, he had analyzed captured Krek's technology and found something remarkable. Their shields were vulnerable to a specific harmonic frequency. "Admiral Han," he broadcast from the research vessel, "if you synchronize your weapons to frequency 7.83 Hertz, their defensive systems will collapse." The effect was immediate and devastating. Human ships began firing in perfect harmony, their weapons tuned to exploit the flaw that Lee had discovered. Krek shields, designed to stop conventional energy weapons, simply vanished under the coordinated assault. But the real turning point came when Lieutenant Colonel Subin Yoon's Marine battalion captured Fleet Admiral Gorthak himself. The Krek's commander had never imagined that enemies would actually board his flagship. In his experience, warfare was conducted at a distance, ship to ship, with honor and tradition. Humans, it turned out, cared nothing for Krek's tradition. Yoon's Marines used breaching charges to blow through the flagship's armor, then swarmed through the ship like antibodies attacking an infection. They moved with the kind of three-dimensional thinking that could only come from a species that had evolved in complex environments where predators lurked in every shadow. "We have the Krek's fleet commander," Yoon reported, her voice calm despite the chaos around her. "He wants to negotiate." Admiral Han's reply was ice-cold. "Tell him we'll negotiate after he tells us where the Rilani prisoners are being held." Gorthak's interrogation revealed the true scope of Krek's operations. Over the past 6 months, they had captured millions of Rilani civilians from the conquered worlds. Some were being used as slave labor. Others were being held as hostages. Many were simply being killed for sport. The locations of the prison camps sent a chill through every human who heard them. Asteroid mining facilities, airless moons, deep space stations where no rescue could possibly reach. The Kreks had scattered their prisoners across dozens of systems, making rescue operations impossible, or so they thought. Admiral Han made a decision that would echo through galactic history. She opened a channel to the entire Krek's empire, broadcasting on every frequency they used. "This is Admiral Han of the Earth Defense Force. You have taken prisoners from the Rilani people. You will return every single one of them. You will evacuate every occupied world. You will cease all military operations immediately, or we will come for you." The response from the Krek's high command was predictably arrogant. "You threaten an empire that spans 47 star systems with your tiny fleet? You are insects buzzing around giants." Admiral Han's reply became the most quoted military communication in galactic history. "We are not insects. We are humans, and humans protect their friends." What happened next shocked the galaxy. The human fleet didn't retreat. Instead, it divided into smaller task forces, each one targeting a specific Krex facility. They moved with surgical precision, striking at prison camps, slave colonies, and military installations across multiple star systems simultaneously. Captain Eugene Rowe led the assault on the Kethvar mining facility, where 10,000 Rilani were being worked to death in the asteroid belt. Her destroyer squadron appeared without warning, disabled the facility's defenses, and began evacuation operations, while Krex reinforcements were still trying to figure out what was happening. Commander Jae Sung Ko's stealth frigates struck the prison station at Morden, deep in Krex space. They arrived invisible, extracted 3,000 Rilani prisoners, and vanished before the local fleet could respond. To the Krex, it seemed like their captives had simply disappeared. Each rescue operation was different, adapted to local conditions, with the kind of flexibility that could only come from a species that had never forgotten how to improvise. Humans didn't follow rigid tactical doctrines. They assessed each situation, developed new approaches, and struck with the unpredictability of natural predators. The Krex Empire, which had controlled 47 star systems through fear and military might, found itself systematically dismantled by task forces that operated like hunting packs. Every time they concentrated their forces to counter one threat, 3 more appeared elsewhere. Dr. Hana Kim, now serving as coordinator between human forces and Rilani survivors, watched the operations unfold from her station on the Harmony's edge. The partnership between the two species had grown stronger with each passing day. Rilani couldn't fight, but they could observe, analyze, and remember. Their peaceful nature made them perfect intelligence gatherers. "Elder Tyven," she said during one of their regular communications, "your people are helping to free themselves. You may not carry weapons, but you're warriors in your own way." The Rilani leader's response carried a note of concern that hadn't been there before. "Dr. Kim, we are grateful beyond words for what your people are doing. But we must ask, what happens when the fighting stops? What happens when there are no more enemies to defeat?" It was a question that Hana couldn't answer. She had seen what humans were capable of when they were angry, when they were protecting something they cared about. The systematic destruction of the Krex Empire wasn't just military strategy. It was the response of a species that had decided that some things were worth killing for. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I believe my people are good. We came to help, and we're helping." "Yes," Elder Tyven replied quietly. "But your species, you are not rescuers, are you? You are something far more dangerous. You are guardians. And guardians must always be ready to become terrible when the innocent are threatened." As the Krex Empire crumbled under the sustained assault of human task forces, that question hung over everything. What kind of species had the galaxy awakened? What had the Rilani's cry for help brought forth from the depths of space? In the command center of the Soul's Thunder, Admiral Han stared at the tactical displays showing human operations across 17 star systems. Each green indicator represented a successful rescue, a prison camp liberated, a world freed. The Krex Empire was dying, and humanity was the weapon that was killing it. But Elder Tyven's question echoed in her mind. What happens next? 6 months after Veltara, the galaxy had learned what it meant to anger a Deathworld species. The Krex Empire, which had once controlled 47 star systems through fear and brutality, no longer existed. In its place were free worlds, liberated, colonies, and millions of beings who owed their lives to a species they had never heard of before the shooting started. Captain Dongwoo Park stood on the observation deck of his new ship, the Healing Wind. The research vessel had been converted into a mobile hospital, carrying medical supplies and reconstruction equipment to worlds devastated by Krex occupation. It wasn't the exploration mission he had signed up for, but it was, perhaps, the most important work he had ever done. Below them, Veltara was healing. The crystal cities were being rebuilt with help from human engineers who had studied Rilani architecture and improved upon it. Gardens that had been burned to ash were growing again, tended by beings who had thought they would never see green. Things bloom. "Dr. Kim to the bridge," came the announcement over the ship's communication system. Hana Kim had changed in the months since the war ended. She was no longer just a xenolinguistics specialist. She was Earth's first ambassador to the Rilani Commonwealth, charged with helping two very different species understand each other. "What do you have for me, Captain?" she asked as she entered the bridge. Park gestured toward the main display, which showed a diplomatic convoy approaching from hyperspace. "The Hegemony delegation has arrived. They want to talk." The Hegemony was the galaxy's dominant military alliance, a confederation of 12 species that had ruled known space for over 1,000 years. They had maintained peace through strength, ensuring that smaller species stayed in line and conflicts remained small. The sudden appearance of humanity had upset their carefully balanced order. "Any idea what they want?" Hana asked. "The same thing every bully wants when they meet someone stronger," Park replied. "To make sure we don't upset their position." The delegation landed at New Vathara, the rebuilt capital of Veltara. The meeting took place in the Hall of Memories, a crystal structure that had been erected to honor those who died during the Krex occupation. It was built in the traditional Rilani style, but reinforced with human engineering, a symbol of what the two species could accomplish together. Admiral So Young Han represented Earth at the negotiations, flanked by Elder Tyven and a team of advisors from both species. Across from them sat representatives of the Hegemony, proud beings from worlds that had never known defeat, species that had ruled through superior technology and coordination. The leader of the delegation was Supreme, Commander Vorthan of the Thex Confederacy, a being whose species had been apex predators on their own world. He had come expecting to deal with another ambitious species that could be contained through diplomacy and careful pressure. He had not expected to meet humans. "The Hegemony congratulates Earth on its recent military success," he began, his translator rendering his words in clipped, formal tones. "However, we are concerned about the implications of your aggressive expansion." Admiral Han's reply was delivered in the same calm voice she had used when ordering the destruction of the Krex fleet. "We haven't expanded anywhere. We responded to a distress call by destroying an entire empire," Vorthan pointed out. "By stopping a genocide," Elder Tyven interjected quietly. "The humans saved not just my people, but millions of beings across dozens of worlds." Supreme Commander Vorthan ignored the Rilani leader, focusing his attention on Admiral Han. "The Krex Empire was a stabilizing force in this region. Their removal has created a power vacuum that threatens galactic peace." "The Krex Empire was murdering children," Admiral Han replied. "If that's your idea of stability, we have very different definitions of peace." The negotiations continued for hours, with the Hegemony representatives making increasingly urgent demands. They wanted humanity to limit its fleet size, accept Hegemony oversight, and submit to pacification protocols that would prevent another incident like Veltara. Admiral Han listened to each demand with growing disbelief. These beings, who claimed to represent galactic civilization, were more concerned about maintaining their own power than protecting innocent lives. Finally, Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun Kim, Earth's senior military commander, stood to address the delegation. He was an older man who had spent his career exploring the galaxy, meeting new species, learning about different cultures. He had believed in the idea of galactic civilization, of species working together for mutual benefit. "Let me make sure I understand your position," he said quietly. "You want us to promise that if we encounter another genocide, another systematic extermination of peaceful beings, we will ask your permission before we intervene." "The Hegemony has established procedures for handling such situations," Vorthan replied. "There are proper channels, diplomatic solutions." "How long do your diplomatic solutions take?" Admiral Kim interrupted. That depends on the complexity of the situation. The Rilani didn't have time for complexity. They had hours, maybe days, before the Kreks cracked their planet open like an egg. Your diplomatic solutions would have been delivered to empty space. Supreme Commander Vorthon's response revealed everything about the hegemony's true nature. Not every species can be saved. Some are simply too weak to survive in a hostile galaxy. The silence that followed was deafening. Elder Tyven stared at the hegemony representative with something approaching horror. Dr. Hana Kim felt sick. Even Captain Park, listening from orbit, was speechless. Admiral Kim's reply became legendary throughout human space and beyond. We never asked to be classified as Deathworlders. We never wanted to be apex predators. But when peaceful species send distress signals, we will answer. When innocent civilians face extinction, we will respond. And if that makes us monsters in your eyes, then perhaps you should ask yourselves what that makes you. The hegemony delegation left Veltara that same day, carrying with them the knowledge that the galaxy had changed forever. Earth would not be controlled, contained, or pacified. Humanity had announced itself as a new kind of power, one that protected through strength but served through sacrifice. In the months that followed, the effects rippled throughout known space. Species that had suffered under the stable rule of stronger neighbors began to hope. Worlds that had accepted oppression as the natural order started to question why things had to be that way. The partnership between humans and Rilani deepened into something unprecedented. Rilani biotechnology, refined over millions of years of peaceful development, combined with human engineering to produce innovations neither species could have achieved alone. Their joint colonies became beacons of what interspecies cooperation could accomplish. Dr. Hana Kim often found herself mediating between the two cultures, helping each understand the other. The humans, with their predator instincts and warrior traditions, learned patience and wisdom from beings who had never known violence. The Rilani, with their gentle nature and artistic souls, learned that sometimes strength was necessary to protect beauty. "Your people are changing us," Elder Tyven told her during one of their regular conversations. "We are learning to be strong without becoming hard." "And your people are changing us too," Hana replied. "We're learning that strength without compassion is just another form of weakness." The galaxy watched and worried. Humanity had emerged not just as another military power, but as something far more dangerous. A species that combined the fighting instincts of a death-world predator with the moral conviction that innocent life was worth protecting at any cost. The final scene played out in the rebuilt crystal gardens of Veltara, where Rilani children played games that human children had taught them, while young humans learned to appreciate art that could move souls to tears. It was a small moment, but it represented something larger. The possibility that predator and prey could not just coexist, but thrive together. Elder Tyven, now very old but still sharp, sat with Dr. Kim in the shade of a crystal tree that had been planted to commemorate the first meeting between their species. "When we sent our distress signal," he said quietly, "we expected saviors. Instead, we received something far more valuable." "What's that?" Hana asked. "Guardians," the old Rilani replied. "Beings who understand that sometimes the greatest kindness requires the capacity for terrible violence. Your people have become the conscience of the galaxy, and we have become their teachers. Together, we are something neither of us could be alone." Above them, human and Rilani ships patrolled the space lanes, ensuring that no other peaceful world would face the choice between slavery and extinction. The galaxy had learned a new truth, that among the stars, the most dangerous beings were not always the most violent, but those who combined the ability to kill with the wisdom to know when killing was necessary. The age of the hegemony was ending. The age of the guardians had begun. And somewhere in the void between the stars, Other distress signals waited to be answered by those who had learned that being human meant never turning away from a cry for help.